Okay, think about this. You get invited to a huge meal. You're really looking forward to it. All the details sound amazing, only to find out the whole thing is just a trick. An incredibly detailed deception.
Wow.
Yeah, and imagine two friends, right? Their relationship isn't breaking down over, some personal fight, but because of their spiritual beliefs.
Yeah.
Deeply held, but totally different.
That's quite a setup.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is where it gets really interesting. We're diving straight into ancient India, into Savaki. It's this amazing story, just packed with religious rivalry, friendship pushed right to the edge, and a spectacular trap that completely backfires.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating, I think, about this story is where we get it from. It's directly from a religious text, the Garahadinna Vatthu.
Right.
And we've got excerpts in the original Pāli and an English translation, which gives us this really direct line into the narrative and the viewpoints inside it.
Absolutely. And the core of all this drama, it's two people. Sirigutta, who's a really devoted follower of the Buddha,
Yeah.
and his friend, Garahadinna. Now, Garahadinna was a disciple of the Jain sect. They were called the Niganthas back then.
Niganthas.
And this difference, their spiritual paths, it's not just some small detail. It's the fundamental conflict here. It drives everything that happens next. So our mission today really is to get under the skin of why they did what they did, driven by this loyalty to their faith, pretty surprising, sometimes shocking consequences, and what this old story might show us about just human behavior and how different belief systems interact, often pretty complexly.
Which immediately brings up that key question, doesn't it? How did this difference in belief escalate? I mean, escalate to something so dramatic and, frankly, dangerous.
Yeah.
The text really focuses on the pressure Garahadinna was feeling from his own group, from the other Jains.
Right. They were relentless. The text says they just kept at him, basically asking, why are you friends with this guy who follows the Buddha? They'd ask him, and this is a quote, why do you go to the ascetic Gautama? What will you gain in his presence? And also, isn't it proper to advise your friend Sirigutta that after coming to us, he will give alms to us?
Wow. So direct.
Totally. You can see they saw Sirigutta's Buddhist faith as like a loss for them, not just socially, but maybe financially too, potential support. What does that kind of constant pressure tell you about the social dynamics back then?
Well, it really highlights that strong sense of community, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And loyalty within these groups. There was this expectation that, you'd bring your friends, your network over to your side, align them with your faith. So Garahadinna, feeling all this, he then tries to sway Sirigutta directly. He basically just repeats what the other Jains were saying.
Right.
Asking him, friend, what is yours with the ascetic Gautama? Having gone to him, what will you gain? Isn't it proper for you to come to my lords and give alms to them? It's this back and forth, showing how those external pressures got internalized. He's acting on them.
Yeah, you can almost feel Sirigutta just getting worn down by it all.
Wow.
He's quiet at first, the text says, but Garahadinna keeps pushing relentlessly until Sirigutta finally pushes back. And this is where things really shift. He asks Garahadinna this very direct question.
Okay.
He says, friend, you come repeatedly and say to me, having gone to the ascetic Gautama, what will you gain? Having gone to my lords, give alms to them. Tell me first, what do your lords know?
Okay. So he's turning it back on him.
Exactly. It's like he's challenging the whole basis for Garahadinna's nagging. What's the dynamic there? Is he just curious, or is he already setting a kind of trap with that question?
I think it's definitely more than just curiosity. It feels like a pivotal moment. He's probing, right? He's probing the core claims of the Jains.
Yeah.
And Garahadinna may be feeling like he has to defend his faith, his teachers. He responds with this really grand, sweeping claim about the omniscience of his Jain leaders. Yeah, he says really confidently, "O sir, do not speak thus. There is nothing not known to my lords. They know all that is past, future, and present, all actions, all that is possible and impossible," saying this will happen, this will not happen.
Wow. That's quite the claim. Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's incredibly bold, leaves absolutely no room for doubt, at least not from Garahadinna's side. That certainty is fascinating.
But Sirigutta doesn't leave it there. He asks again, basically, are you sure they know everything? And Garahadinna just doubles down. Totally unwavering. Yes, they know absolutely everything.
Okay.
And this exchange right here, it's so crucial because it sets the stage for what Sirigutta does next, which is, well, pretty extreme. He seems to take Garahadinna at his word, but you can tell he's got this very specific, very elaborate plan forming.
Exactly. Sirigutta's response seems almost too easy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He says, if that is so, a heavy deed has been done by you by not telling me this matter for such a long time.
Right, like why didn't you tell me sooner?
Today I have known the power of knowledge of your lords. Go, friend. Invite my lords at my word. It really sounds like he's finally bought it, like he's convinced.
Or is he? That's the question, isn't it?
Precisely. Because Garahadinna is just ecstatic, completely believes
That's
it.
terrifying.
He rushes off to the Jain monastery, tells them Sirigutta wants to host them for a meal the very next day.
And the Jains must have been thrilled.
Oh, absolutely ecstatic. They see this as a massive win, a clear sign that Sirigutta, this respected Buddhist layman, is coming over to their side, or at least going to give them major support.
They're counting their chickens already.
Pretty much. They say, our business is accomplished. What wealth will not be ours from the time Sirigutta became pleased with us. They're already thinking about the benefits. It really shows that competitive edge between the groups back then.
But while Garahadinna and the Jains are celebrating, Sirigutta's back home preparing. And his preparations are not quite the welcoming feast they're expecting.
No. The text describes this incredibly elaborate and honestly quite horrible trap.
Right.
What does that level of planning tell us about how intensely Sirigutta felt about Garahadinna's pressure and those claims of omniscience?
Oh, it's seriously devious. He has this long pit dug right between his house and Garahadinna's.
Okay.
And it's not just a pit, it's filled with, well, the text says excrement and mud.
Oh dear, that's unpleasant.
Deeply unpleasant. But he's not done. He drives stakes around the edges, ties ropes to them.
Ropes?
Yeah, and then he sets up these asana seats, probably low stools or platforms, so the front legs are on solid ground by the pit.
Right.
But the back legs are just resting on those ropes precariously.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Exactly. Someone sits, the ropes give way, boom. And to hide it all, cushions on the seats.
It's incredibly calculated, designed specifically to test that claim of omniscience, right?
Yeah.
If they know everything, they won't sit down.
Precisely. And the text spells out his thinking. When they are seated thus, they will fall head first. He even puts out empty pots, washes them, covers them, makes it look like a huge feast is ready. Total illusion.
The level of detail is just, wow. It really paints a picture of how determined he was.
So the stage is set for this. Let's call it an unconventional dinner party.
Huh?
Next morning, Garahadinna shows up, all excited, ready to see his friend's supposed change of heart and enjoy the generosity.
Poor guy has no idea.
None. Sirigutta confirms, yep, all ready. Even lists off the fake food items, the seating. Garahadinna is totally satisfied, leaves, and basically sends 500 Jains walking right into it.
500, that's a lot of people. It really underlines how big a deal they thought this invitation was.
Yes, so they arrive. Sirigutta greets them, outwardly very respectful.
But inwardly.
Inwardly, his thoughts are pretty dark. The text quotes him thinking, "Indeed, you know all divisions, such as past, etc. If you know all, do not enter my house."
He's giving them a silent warning.
Exactly. For indeed, when you have entered, there is neither porridge nor food for you. If you enter without knowing, having thrown you into the excrement pit, I will beat you.
Whoa. Beat them too.
Apparently. He even signals his men, telling them, knowing their manner of sitting, stand at the rear side and remove the coverings so that they may not be smeared with impurity. He's thinking ahead about the mess.
That's chillingly practical.
It's a very thinly veiled threat, delivered only in his head. You claim you know everything, then you'll know not to come in, but outwardly. Yeah. All smiles, welcoming them in.
And the Jains start to go towards the seats.
But then Sirigutta's men step in. They pretend it's about proper etiquette, the custom of the house.
Another layer of deception.
Right. They say, having entered our house, it is proper for the venerable ones to sit down knowing the custom.
Okay.
And then comes the crucial instruction, the real mechanism of the trap. Standing at the base of your respective seats, it is proper to sit down with a single striking indeed by all.
A single striking, meaning all at once.
All at exactly the same time. That's the key. They need all those back legs on the ropes to give way simultaneously, maximize the fall, the indignity.
And the Jains, still thinking this is just about politeness?
They totally buy it. Readily. It's just proper decorum, right? So they all get into position.
Oh, no.
And at Sirigutta's signal, his men whip away the coverings.
On down they go.
Predictably, yes.
Okay.
All 500 Jains, back legs unsupported, plunging headfirst into Well, into the pit.
That is just shocking,
Well,
brutal. It really shows how extreme things had become between these groups. What does that level of sheer vindictiveness tell us?
It's intense. And Sirigutta doesn't stop there. He slams the door shut, traps them.
Traps them in there.
Yes, and then starts beating them with sticks as they're trying to scramble out.
Oh my God.
And he's taunting them, yelling, "Why do you not know the past, future, and present?" Throwing Garahadinna's boast right back at them.
Wow.
His thought, according to the text, this much will be enough for them. It's just grim satisfaction.
So eventually he lets them out.
Eventually, yeah. After he feels he's made his point, punished them enough, he opens the door and these totally humiliated Jains just scramble out, covered in filth, probably hurt.
What an ordeal.
But wait, there's more. Sirigutta isn't quite done humiliating them.
Seriously?
He has the path outside his house made slippery with lime.
Oh, come on.
So as they're fleeing, covered in muck, they start slipping and falling all over again. And he's there, beating the ones who fall, finally drives them off, saying, "This much is enough punishment for you." Almost like he's bored of it now.
That's just cruel. Utter humiliation for the Jains.
You can just picture it, can't you? 500 incredibly unhappy, smelly, bruised Jains stumbling back to their attendant, Garahadinna, just destroyed.
And Garahadinna's reaction must have been explosive.
Incandescent is the word the original uses. He sees his revered teachers, his fellow Jains, in this state.
Absolutely appalling state.
And he is furious. The text captures his rage. "I have been ruined by Sirigutta, having beaten my lords who were fields of merit. He has brought them to ruin."
So he sees it as an attack not just on them, but on their spiritual status, their merit.
Exactly. It's sacrilege to him. This really shows how highly they regarded their leaders.
So fueled by this rage, what does he do?
What you might expect, I guess. He goes straight to the king, demands justice.
And does he get it?
Surprisingly, yes, initially, anyway. The king, maybe just hearing about this mass assault, levies a huge fine against Sirigutta. 1,000 kahapanas.
1,000, that's significant.
Very. But Sirigutta isn't taking it lying down. When the king's messenger arrives, Sirigutta asks for an audience. He basically says, "Hold on, investigate first."
Okay. Reasonable request.
He pleads, "Sire, having investigated, you should impose the fine. Do not do so without investigating."
And the king agrees.
Yes, the king shows some fairness as he'll look into it. Sirigutta, now confident because he knows Garahadinna set this whole thing in motion with his boasting.
Oh, right.
He replies, "Good, sire, then impose it." Basically saying, "Fine, investigate, you'll see I was justified."
So the king says,
"Then speak. Tell me what happened." So Sirigutta lays it all out, Garahadinna's constant pressure, the claims of omniscience, how it led directly to the trap.
he gives the whole context.
Right, and finishes by saying, "Sire, if it is proper to impose a fine in this case, do so," putting it back on the king's judgment.
So the king then turns to Garahadinna.
Exactly. Asks him directly about those boasts. "Did you really claim your teachers knew everything?"
And Garahadinna sticks to his story.
He does. Maybe pride, maybe conviction, who knows?
Right.
But he confirms the boasts. And that pretty much seals his fate.
Because the king sees the contradiction.
Totally. The king recognizes, wait a minute, you said they knew everything, but they walked right into an obvious and disgusting trap. So he sides with Sirigutta.
And fine.
Reversed. The king tells Garahadinna, "You, while not knowing even this much, why did you tell the Buddha's disciple that they know everything? May the fine imposed by you be yours alone."
Ouch. So Garahadinna has to pay his own fine.
Yep. He ends up paying the 1,000 kapanas himself. And adding insult to injury, the text says Sirigutta then went and beat the Jains who were staying at Garahadinna's house and drove them out too.
Wow. Just a complete and brutal turnaround. It really underscores the danger of making claims you can't back up, especially about knowing everything.
You'd absolutely think that's the end of the friendship, right? After all that, the pit, the beatings, the fine.
You would think. Irreparably damaged.
But apparently not. The text says after about 2 weeks, a fortnight of probably fuming, Garahadinna decides to reconcile.
Really? After all that? What was his thinking?
He thinks, it is not proper for me to behave thus. Maybe feeling some guilt, or maybe the text also hints he thought, indeed, I should bring ruin to the followers of this one. So maybe it wasn't entirely pure motives at first.
Ambiguous. But he goes to Sirigutta anyway.
He does. Goes to Sirigutta and just says, "Friend Sirigutta." Starts the conversation.
How does Sirigutta respond?
Their exchange is actually quite amazing. Garahadinna sort of tentatively asks why Sirigutta hasn't been talking to him.
Understandable silence, maybe.
And Sirigutta shows this surprising level of, well, forgiveness. He says, "Friend, I did not speak because of your not speaking with me. Let whatever was done be done. We will not break our friendship."
Wow. Let whatever was done be done. That's huge.
It is. It seems like despite everything, that underlying bond was still there, still meant something to both of them.
So they patched things up.
They do. The narrative says they renewed their friendship, became close again.
Incredible.
But the story isn't over. Later on, Sirigutta kind of flips the script. He starts doing what Garahadinna did to him earlier.
Trying to convert him?
Sort of, but with this really sarcastic edge. He starts questioning Garahadinna's connection to the Jains, suggesting with heavy irony maybe he should listen to the Buddha instead, or, give alms to his lords.
Ooh, a definite dig there, given what happened.
Totally. He asks, what is yours with the Naganthas? Having gone to them, what will you gain? Isn't it proper for you to go to my teacher or give alms to your lords? You can just hear the sarcasm.
And Garahadinna must have loved that.
Not surprisingly, no. He's pretty annoyed by this blatant rubbing it in. So he counters, again, by asking about the Buddha's knowledge, maybe still trying to find some way his own teachers were superior. It shows that even though they reconciled, his core beliefs hadn't totally shifted.
Right. Still some rivalry there.
And Sirigutta jumps on this chance. He describes the Buddha's wisdom, but differently. He says a Buddha can know people's minds in 16 specific ways.
16 ways, that's specific.
Yeah, he says, "Venerable sir, do not speak thus. There is nothing not known by my teacher. He discerns the minds of beings in 16 ways.
It's a contrast to the Jains' just vague, knows-everything claim.
Interesting distinction. How does Garahadinna take this?
Well, he's still skeptical, but something must have stuck because he does something really unexpected next.
He invites the Buddha himself for a meal the next day.
Whoa, the Buddha himself.
And 500 monks along with him?
After everything that happened with the Jains, that's a massive turnaround. Or is it, what's his motive here? Genuine curiosity. Still trying to one-up Sirigutta. Or something darker.
Well, the Sirigutta certainly wonders. He's understandably cautious, right?
That.
So he goes to the Buddha to tell him about the invitation. But he voices his doubts. He basically lays out the whole backstory, the pit trap for the Jains.
Reminds the Buddha of what happened.
Exactly. He says, "Venerable sir, my friend Garahadinna invites you. But the day before yesterday, this much was done by me to his followers. I also do not know whether he intends to give alms to you with a pure heart." He's worried. Having considered, if it is proper, accept. If not, do not accept. You can really feel his apprehension.
So what does the Buddha do? He has insight, right?
He does. The Buddha uses his wisdom, looks into Garahadinna's mind, and sees his true intentions.
Are Sirigutta's fears justified?
Oh, absolutely. Garahadinna has planned another trap, even worse this time.
Worse than the excrement pit.
Much worse. He's dug an even bigger, deeper pit, filled it with acacia charcoal, set it on fire, a massive pit of burning coals intended for the Buddha and all 500 monks.
Good grief. That's not just humiliation, that's deadly intent. A huge escalation.
Truly sinister. But the Buddha sees more.
Okay.
He sees that when he steps towards the pit, his footstep will miraculously transform the burning coals into a bed of lotuses.
Lotuses from a charcoal pit.
Exactly. And he foresees that he'll give a teaching there, and an incredible number, 84,000 beings, will be converted, including Sirigutta and Garahadinna themselves.
Wow, both of them.
Both reaching the first stage of enlightenment and becoming stream enterers.
Yeah.
And they'll donate all their wealth to the Sangha, the monastic community.
So despite the danger, the potential benefit is immense.
Exactly. Knowing this amazing outcome was possible, the Buddha decides to accept the invitation.
A brave decision, even knowing what Garahadinna planned initially.
So Sirigutta tells Garahadinna the Buddha accepted, maybe still urging him, make a worthy offering, perhaps holding out some hope.
While Garahadinna is presumably busy building his death trap.
Precisely. The scene is set for another showdown, but this time the stakes are infinitely higher. The Buddha himself is the target.
And Garahadinna really doubles down on the deception.
Oh, yeah. Bigger, deeper charcoal pit. 80 cartloads of acacia wood. That's a lot of fuel burning all night to create this massive bed of white-hot coals.
Terrifying.
Then he covers it again, tries to disguise it with branches, reeds, plastered with cow dung, lays a flimsy path over one side meant to collapse.
Just like before, but with fire.
And the empty pots again, the whole deceptive setup. Seats arranged precariously over the hidden pit, ready to tip.
He really thinks this is going to work. He's convinced the Buddha and 500 monks are going into that fire pit.
Utterly convinced. So, next morning, Sirigutta comes by again, asks if everything's ready.
And Garahadinna
Confidently assures him, yes, all set. Even shows him the fake offerings, mirroring Sirigutta's own earlier deception. It's chillingly similar. Sirigutta just nods, maybe observing, maybe still hoping.
A crowd gathers.
A big crowd. The text says some had wrong views, wanting to see the Buddha fail.
Schadenfreude.
Basically. And others had right views, eager to hear the Buddha teach, just to see him. A real mix.
So the Buddha arrives with all 500 monks.
He does. Garahadinna greets him, looks respectful on the outside.
But inside, we know what he's thinking.
Yes, and the text tells us his truly awful thoughts. Venerable sir, indeed you know all. You discern the minds. So it was said to me, if you know, do not enter my house.
Same silent challenge as Sirigutta gave the Jains.
But then it gets worse. For indeed, when you have entered, there is neither porridge nor food. But all of you I will throw into the charcoal pit and seize.
To seize them. He planned to capture them after throwing them in fire.
That's what it says. Truly malevolent. He then takes the Buddha's bowl, says, come this way, blessed one. Having come to our house, it is proper to come knowing the custom.
That custom again. What's the instruction this time?
He tells the monks to enter one by one.
Ah, different from the Jains. Why?
His sinister thinking is revealed. Having seen one going in front, fallen into the charcoal pit, the rest will not come. Having thrown them down one by one, I will seize them. He wants to pick them off individually.
Cathodically evil.
But the Buddha, knowing everything, just accepts and starts to walk into the house alone. Garahadinna sees him approach the pit, gets scared himself, and urges the Buddha to go first.
And then the miracle happens.
Right then, as the Buddha steps onto the concealed pit, poof, the covering vanishes.
Gone.
Instantly. And the pit of burning coals transforms into this incredible bed of huge, beautiful lotuses.
Wow. Just wow. From fire to flowers.
It's an incredibly powerful image, isn't it? Purity, serenity, just blooming right out of deadly intent.
Absolutely. So the Buddha just walks on them.
Walks across the lotuses, sits down on the prepared Buddha seat, and then all 500 monks follow him, each finding a lotus to sit on as well.
Amazing. What about Garahadinna?
He suddenly feels this intense heat, like the pit is still burning him. He's terrified.
Understandably. His plan didn't just fail, it spectacularly transformed into its opposite.
He totally panics, runs to Sirigutta, desperate, "Sir, be a refuge for me." He knows he's in deep trouble.
And he confesses everything.
Yeah, the exchange shows his complete despair. He blurts out, "There is neither porridge nor food in the house for the 500 monks. What shall I do?"
Amidst the deception?
In the midst of the trap. "I made a great pit filled with charcoal, thinking, having thrown them down there, I will seize them.
Yeah.
Then great lotuses arose, all went and sat. Now what shall I do?"
He's utterly lost.
And Sirigutta, what does he say? Sirigutta reminds him, maybe with a touch of irony, "But didn't you say you had all this food prepared?"
Rubs it in a little.
Just a little. Garahadinna has to admit, no, it was all lies. The pots are empty. Then Sirigutta tells him, "Go check the pots again."
And Triger?
Another miracle.
Exactly. As Garahadinna checks, the pots miraculously fill up with all the food and drink he'd falsely promised. Right there, in response to the Buddha's presence.
That must have been the final straw for Garahadinna's disbelief.
Completely. He's overwhelmed, astounded. This, the text says, is where his faith truly ignites. He's filled with joy, belief.
So he serves them.
Respectfully serves the Buddha and the Sangha with the miraculous food. After the meal, he takes the Buddha's bowl, ready for the blessing.
And the Buddha teaches.
Yes. And he recites these verses that just perfectly capture the situation. The contrast between ignorance and enlightenment.
Using the lotus analogy.
Exactly. The analogy of the fragrant lotus emerging from the rubbish heap. He speaks in Pāli.
Yatasa karatanasmi padumatata jayata, meaning, just as a lotus, fragrant and delightful, might grow in a rubbish heap.
Beautiful imagery.
And the second part. Evase kanaptisus, adirokati panyaya, samasambuta savako, which means, even so, the disciple of the truly enlightened Buddha surpasses the blind multitude, who are like rubbish by his wisdom.
Wow. directly contrasting the enlightened mind with the rubbish of ignorance and malice that Garahadinna represented just moments before.
Precisely. It encapsulates that transformative power. The text even explains the Pāli terms, underlining how wisdom shines even amidst defilement.
And the impact of this teaching.
Immense. Remember the crowd? 84,000 beings, the text says, were converted right then and there.
84,000. Incredible.
And crucially, both Garahadinna and Sirigutta attained that first stage of enlightenment. Stream entry.
Both of them. So Garahadinna went from plotting murder to achieving enlightenment in one afternoon.
According to the story, yes. That's the transformative power being illustrated. And they're so moved, they donate all their wealth to the Buddha's teachings.
A complete turnaround.
So the Buddha returns to the monastery, and the monks are just buzzing, right? Talking about this incredible miracle, lotuses from a charcoal pit.
Understandably amazed.
The Buddha comes in, hears them talking, and explains something interesting. He says this kind of miracle wasn't actually unique to him being the Buddha now.
Oh, it happened before.
It had happened in a previous life, too, when he was a bodhisattva, still on the path. He references a specific story, the Karadiya Jataka, though these excerpts don't give us the details of that particular past life story.
Fascinating. So it connects this event to his long journey towards Buddhahood.
Exactly. So, okay, let's try and bring this incredible story full circle. We started with this conflict, right? Driven by religious rivalry.
Deep-seated rivalry.
Then Sirigutta's shocking, really elaborate revenge trap with the pit.
Which backfired on the Jains spectacularly.
And the king's intervention, the fine getting reversed.
The unexpected reconciliation between the two friends.
Which seems so fragile. And then Garahadinna's even more treacherous, deadly second trap, aimed right at the Buddha.
The charcoal pit.
Which then miraculously transforms, turns into the symbol of purity, leading to this massive conversion, including our two main characters finding enlightenment.
It's quite a roller coaster. The themes that jump out are pretty powerful, aren't they?
Definitely. You see that destructive side of really ingrained religious rivalry, the deception, the harm people can inflict, defending their beliefs or attacking others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then you also see this profound power of wisdom, compassion. The Buddha's teaching, basically.
Yeah.
How it can transform even the most hostile situations, the most hateful intentions.
Yeah. Which brings us to that final thought for you listening. Think about how strongly our beliefs, religious, ideological, whatever, can drive our actions. How they shape our interactions with people who see the world differently. This ancient story, it's full of drama, miracles, but ultimately maybe it points to this amazing potential for change, right? Unexpected transformation, even when things seem hopeless, when people are confronted with real wisdom, real compassion.
It makes you wonder, what is this story of Sirigutta and Garahadinna with their really extreme acts of betrayal, but also eventual reconciliation and awakening? What does it really tell us about how different faiths can relate? About the possibility for understanding, for change, maybe even finding a shared path?
It's definitely a lot to think about. A really compelling narrative to just sit with.